Hello, welcome to the Alone Show. I'm your host, John Malone. In this episode, no regulars, because reasons, as always. As for our guest, he is from Houston, Texas, currently somewhere in the hills of Georgia. He is published a book. But what is that book exactly? Well, we're
It,
about to find out. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Russell Little.
Thank you so much. It is Murder for Me. It came out in its second edition last month, and I have the sequel coming out in October, Murder by Storm. I'm very excited about it, and thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. So, how's life?
Well, life is good. Uh, I'm in the hills of Georgia where, in the middle of summer, to my amazement, it's in the 70s, which is a shock to someone from Houston where it's 100 degrees all the time.
Ah, alright then. That's interesting. So, what inspired you to become an author?
Well, it was something I always wanted to do. Uh, and I guess I practiced divorce and criminal law for 40 years. And I probably started a book based upon my experiences and some of the truly bizarre and interesting characters that I met over those 40 years. I must have started the book 20 times. And when my last son was leaving for college, he said, I was 50 years old, and my son said, Dad, you're running out of time. You need to finish the book. So I finished the book.
Nice, nice. And yeah, so I have also seen that you also was an attorney at one point.
Yes, I,
How was that?
yes,
Go
I,
on.
I still am. Uh, I don't have any cases right now because I'm concentrating on both the second edition of Murder for Me and the next book. But I practiced law for 40 years in criminal and divorce law, and I've had over 200 jury trials, and it was quite the experience that fed everything I wanted to do in writing, and that's what I write about.
Fabulous. Are there any other jobs or opportunities you haven't done yet that you would like to do someday?
Uh, well, I would say uh, there's some places in the world I haven't been that I still need to go. Uh, I was going to go to Russia. I probably won't get to do that now. I'm going to spend the summer exploring the Greek islands because I haven't done that. I think there's some countries in the world I haven't been that I want to go, and that's what I spend uh, when I'm not writing or promoting my books or doing my podcast too. I like to explore different places in the world I haven't been yet. I believe that world travel is an important part of education because it opens windows you didn't know existed until you were somewhere. And I also think you have to see things for yourself because you can read about them, but they're never quite what actually is. And you don't really know it until you see it. It's like when I tried jury trials, I would start when I was preparing for a trial, I would go to where the accident or the occurrence happened and I would see it for myself. And that way I had a tangible feel to it, to the intellectual process. And I think that's true about everything.
Yeah, absolutely. If someone wrote a book about you, what do you think its title would be?
Push, because I'm always pushing the limits of what I can do and what I think and my opinions and my knowledge, trying to push further than I was before. I came from a, a blue collar family that uh, hardly had university education, and I went to not only did I go to law school, but I went to the best law school in the state I lived in, which was the University of Texas. And I've always pushed myself to my limits, and I believe that that's something you have to do for for your whole life. It's kind of like what Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations about you have to push as long as you can as a person to make yourself as whole as possible.
Yes, absolutely. If you were hosting a dinner party and you could invite five guests who were either dead or alive, who would you invite?
Uh, Dostoevsky, because I read his book, one of his books every year over and over. Uh, I would invite Nietzsche because he was the opponent philosophically to Dostoevsky, and I think we could have a great discussion. Uh, there was I don't even know his name, but there was a famous uh, Buddhist monk of, of from India that traveled in the first 500 years of AD from India to China to introduce Buddhism to China. And he was famous for his great travels of that time. And I think that man, I don't know his name, but that would be one of the men. And I think Cicero.
Hmm. Yes. You don't actually like that. I don't
Thank
usually
you.
say it much, but you're welcome.
What do you
Have you
like
ever
about
met?
it?
I had it for a second, but now it's gone. So, oh man, silly me. Have you met anyone famous?
I've met a lot of people famous. I met 4 or 5 presidents. I worked for 2 of them. I did advance work for some of them. I've uh, I met the most amazing person I ever met, which is strange, would be Elizabeth Taylor, because I remember when I met her, it took my breath away because I couldn't believe the color of her eyes. You always read these things about her eyes being violet, and I've never seen violet eyes on a person naturally. And when I met her, to my shock, she had violet eyes. I was stunned. So I guess Elizabeth Taylor is the one that took my breath away the most, because whoever saw, whoever heard of violet colored eyes?
Yeah,
That's no contacts.
yeah,
Or
that is interesting.
I met Lonnie Anderson one time. The thing you always think about one thing with Lonnie Anderson, but that's not what stunned me when I met her. I think she had the shiniest neon white teeth I'd ever seen in my life. That was strange. Neon white teeth. How do you get teeth like that?
I asked myself the same thing. I never knew teeth could get that way.
Yeah, you can bleach teeth, you can color teeth, uh, but this was like a electrical white. I can't imagine. I can't imagine how much money it cost her. And I met her in the '80s, so it's not like they had lasers back then. I don't know how it happened, but it was amazing. Her teeth.
Oh yes, I can see it now. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
It would be where I do live now, uh, because I live uh, with the same woman I've been married to for 41 years, and I have adult children that are happy, and I have grandchildren, and we have a big close family, and it's like some kind of storybook life. So I love where I live. I got to tell you, I travel as much as I can. Uh, in the ancient Muslim text, when it writes about educated people, and it was educated men in the book, it it writes about two ways to be educated: the book way and by, but if you are just educated by books, you're not an educated person. You have to also be a well-traveled person to be an educated person. And I believe that, and I believe that's the only way you can be well educated. So I travel as much as I can to places that are not always predictable, because that's the way you educate yourself.
Yes, that is so true. What should they teach in high school, but they don't?
They don't teach Shakespeare right, especially in the United States. That when they don't, they teach it briefly. They teach Shakespeare, and I know that's not what you expected, right?
Don't think so, no.
But they say read this play and then write a paper about it. There's no way. Shakespeare wasn't written to read. It was written to watch. And it was written to watch when you know the jokes and the inside information, because that's the audience he wrote for. And the only way you can actually study Shakespeare and appreciate the brilliance of it is by understanding a play before you see it, then watching it, and then reading it, so then you can get it. And they don't have time to do that in high school, especially in America, especially with Shakespeare. But that's the only way you can get it. It's like Julius Caesar. There's no way you can get that play unless you already know where he got it from Plutarch, and why Shakespeare wrote it the way he did, and who really is the star of that play. So my answer would be Shakespeare. And I'm kind of a nut about it, in that how great Shakespeare was and how little the American readers appreciate how great it is.
Yes, exactly. If your mind was an island, what would it look like?
If my mind was an island, it would be like Bali, where there's an island, and all around the island is a coral reef that extends out of the water that surrounds the island. Because I think that's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. And it is symbolic of the way I am, because, like I said before, I was an attorney for 40 years. I've done a lot of both in politics and law, and a true poker face, or a true facade, is always important, and it's always served me well. And so I would think Bali would be the island, and that's what it would look like. Also, there's pretty good beaches.
Yes, those beaches are very good.
Yes.
Yeah. If you were chosen to colonize a new habitable planet, would you take the offer?
Uh, you mean like Musk going to Mars?
Yes, going to Mars or wherever planet in the solar system or galaxy universe where life can be created.
Uh, yes, I would take the offer, because uh, I believe one of my philosophical beliefs is that the older you get, the more you must disrupt your life so you can feel the motion of time. You don't want to be like a bug that floats down the creek on the water, but you want to drag across the sand so you can feel time move. And that's why I'm in the hills of Georgia now instead of Texas, to disrupt my life so I can do new things, see new things. And so as I've gotten a little older, yes, that would be something, because that would be the ultimate disruption.
Okay, can't argue with that. What was the largest thing you have ever witnessed.
What do you mean by largest thing?
Uh, Largest object, entity in size, quantities.
Okay, I'll tell you what it is. I do have an answer for this. So, being a Houstonian, I've ridden out several hurricanes. Several years ago, Harvey hit Houston for 7 days. It sat on Houston, and Houston received 52 inches of rain. I lived in a high rise downtown, and across the park is where thousands of people that had been drowned out of their home were rescued and taken. And I spent 2 weeks walking across well, 1 week in the hurricane, walking across the park during the hurricane and helping those people. And then another week after the hurricane passed. And then I spent a couple of months helping total strangers I'd never met and would never meet again that didn't have any family or friends to help them with their destroyed homes, gutting their homes so they could get them ready for repairs. And I did that for a couple of months. And so for that time period, seeing the disruption in life, and also the way people came together and helped each other, didn't care their race, their beliefs, anything. People were in need and other people were helping. It was the greatest moment of my life. And it was the biggest thing that I've seen in my whole life. And it changed my life.
Yeah, it sure did. If your life was a meal, what kind of meal would that be?
It would be a meal at St. John Restaurant in London. It would be an appetizer of foie gras and a lamb shank for the main course. It was the greatest meal I've ever had in my life. And I love that place. And I would go back. Next time I'm in London, I will be back there if St. John is still open and have that meal again. It was the greatest meal I ever had.
Wow,
Have you eaten at St.
nice.
John?
No, I've never eaten at St. John.
You need to go to St. John and have the foie gras and the lamb shank. It's the greatest meal you'll ever have.
All right then. I will certainly make a note of that. If you could get an exotic pet, what kind of companion would you like to have?
Okay. Well, I'm kind of a nut about animals, so the type of exotic pet animals that I love most, which are the great fauna of Africa, the elephants, rhinoceroses, hippos, the great fauna. I would never want as a pet because I would never want to see them in captivity. Uh, Perhaps because of that, it would be something like a macaw parrot, which is common but not cruel. And they would
Okay.
out they a macaw parrot will outlive you.
Yeah, true, true. Do you know a guy named Joe?
I know several guys named Joe.
Okay. Or do you know a guy named Mike?
Yes, I do know some men named Mike. Why?
I don't know. I felt like there was a joke coming on, but then, nah, screw it, I can't be bothered.
One of the men that I know is Joe. The reason I think it's funny, there's no way you could know that. One of the rules in life is you need to know somebody who always knows a guy. If you need a plumber, you can call this guy and he'll know someone that can get over there no matter the time. If you need something thrown away, you can call him and he'll know a guy that can get it thrown away. The guy I know that is the guy who always knows a guy is named Joe.
So at least someone knows a guy named Joe.
Everybody needs to know a guy. My guy is Joe. It's funny you asked that.
Yes, exactly. Can't argue with that. What is your favorite life hack?
Uh, to make life better, my favorite life hack is my always loyalty to my family, and that they all know how much their father loves them and that they can always rely upon him. That has served, and the reason I say that's a hack is because it's not done that much anymore, and it makes a family as it grows older and everybody's an adult, everyone still stays close and loves each other because the way that spreads through the family. And if that's the one thing that I could really urge young people to concentrate on, is to build a foundation and a family, and to put their energy and time in that, because over time, in the short term, it costs money, it costs career, but in the long term, it's what life's about. The rest of it's just fills in the blanks. What life's really about, that hack fixes.
Yes, that's deep. If you had to get rid of a holiday, which holiday would you get rid of?
Hmm. Labor Day.
I'd say the same.
What?
I'd say the same.
Oh, and why would you say it?
Because what's the cultural significance of Labor Day? What's the purpose? What? Why should we have the need to celebrate this holiday?
Oh, you should visit Houston, Texas in August, and then you know why I would say it, because it's too hot to go outside in August during at Labor Day. It's too hot, so you can't. And you're usually that you've had summer, you're ready for fall to start. I think Labor Day's always been something I'm always okay. Let's go on. Let's get on. Labor Day's always been a nuisance to me.
Yeah, fair enough. What is the one thing you can't live without?
A good cigar in the afternoon, a cup of good coffee early in the morning. Mm. That feeling you get after you wake up, after you've slept 8 hours, the way you feel after you've worked all day and you feel like you've really accomplished something. That weird feeling after when you sit down to write and you look up a moment later and it's been 4 hours, and it's like you've time leapt, because there hasn't been any time in your mind, because you've been buried in this alternate world of your writing for 4 hours. Those are feelings I can't live without. Good cup of coffee. That's a great thing too.
Hmm, yes. What is the best way to start the morning?
Uh, well, the way I like to start a morning is as you can tell from my previous answer, I like to get up early, have a cup of coffee, and then get to work doing writing, doing required stuff before I start the outline for the day. Uh, Also, completely alternative, but just as good, is when you're one summer during the pandemic. During the pandemic, we rented a Airbnb on a ranch in Colorado, and I would sit out on the patio every morning with a cup of coffee and watch the donkeys bay for the ranchers to come feed them every morning. That was a pretty good morning.
Ah, all right then. Nice. What flavor of ice cream do you wish existed?
I actually am an ice creamaholic, so I have to not eat ice cream because if I start eating it, I'll eat a whole gallon of it. It's awful. But I'm a purist. I like my ice cream vanilla, and I don't think any other flavor is necessary in the world. I think it's superfluous and shouldn't exist, and people shouldn't be allowed to eat them. So I have a negative answer to the question. I do not think there should be any other flavor but vanilla.
Okay,
I'm a fanatic about it.
fair enough. Fair enough. If you could travel back in time, what decade would you want to live in?
I would want to live in Republican Rome, the decade before Caesar crossed the Rubicon, because I would like to. I've read all of Cicero's letters from that time and uh, his opponents, what little literature they produced, and I would love to see in the middle of that during the intellectual and political battle that took place that forced Caesar to cross the Rubicon. That's the decade I'd want to live.
Sounds
Plus,
good.
it's Republican Rome, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, what's not to like about Republican Rome?
There's a whole lot not to like about it.
Yeah, absolutely. What about? Wait, hold on. I'm a bit confused now. I'll get back on, and I'm back.
I'm here.
Yeah. So, what would you do if you found out you won the lottery?
Uh, do you know the Stoic concept of the Velvet Hammer?
No, I did not.
The Stoic concept of the Velvet Hammer is when you've accomplished everything and you're so comfortable that you don't push. It's like the opposite of what Marcus Aurelius wrote about. And the trouble with the lottery is if I had it, it would be a threat to be a velvet hammer. So it's not something I'd really want. And the alternative, I've kind of won the lottery because I live a great life. I've had a great career. I have books coming out. I have a family that loves me. I get to travel. So I kind of won the lottery.
That's a very good point. It's not about the money, it's about the things you have.
Right.
And not many people have the things that we have,
Yeah, and
like
we should,
on a global scale.
right. And we should be grateful for it.
Exactly. And that is all we have for this episode. It's great having you on, Russell, talking about your works on your upcoming and your already published book, your works as an attorney, and many other related things. It's been great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And until next time, stay tuned for more.